Just gotta have fun with it. Just gotta wing it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listography. Jason, Joe, and Krams are here. Side 3 of Cars Week. And we all are big Elliot Easton lovers. We think he's fantastic, one of the best guitar players of that era. And I don't think he gets enough love or recognition. So for our third video, we are going to talk about our most favorite underrated guitar players. There's a lot of different ways to interpret this. We're leaving it kind of vague, so whatever you guys want to do. Underrated could be completely unknowns. It could be guitarists that are legendary in their own right, but maybe you think should be thought of even more highly. So what do you guys got?
For my list, I sort of went, everyone should probably know most of these names, but I think they kind of get buried against their contemporaries and their peers a little bit. So I'm going to start off with this 90s rock star, rock god, really, but he does not get the credit he deserves for his guitar playing, and that is Billy Corgan. If you listen to Siamese Dream on a track like Geek USA, it's incredible. I mean, what he does, what he can do, it's almost like, Prince sort of, where it's completely different from anyone else. He can be a rock god, but he kind of tunes it down and turns it off, when he feels like it. There's not nearly as much of that kind of like lengthy solo stuff on something like Melancholy in the Infinite Sadness, but on Gish and Siamese Dream, he's just ridiculous. Some of his solos, really unique sound too. I think he does not get the credit he deserves, especially when he's up against like Kurt Cobain and some of the other grunge all-stars. But I think he's fantastic. I also got Tim Wheeler, the singer and guitarist from Ash, which most people don't really know about, but he's just a great guitar player, sort of in that, maybe Rivers Cuomo-esque, a little more maybe metal influence. But I guess they both kind of have that little metal influence on them. But just a great riff writer, great soloist, wildly underrated band and guitarist. Also on my list, speaking of Rivers Cuomo, I think when he wants to be, very good soloist, great writer, a lot of interesting parts. Probably gets, his guitar playing probably doesn't get enough credit because of his songwriting and sort of the poppiness of it. But when he wants to rock out, he's very good, especially on maybe some of the later album like Maladroit. He really kind of lets his hair down a little bit. Also on my list, I got Davy Johnstone from Elton John's band. Just awesome work. Most people don't think of guitar when they think of Elton John stuff, but his 70s stuff has awesome guitar work, and it's just always really musical. It's always really kind of nicely melodic, and it just fits in perfectly with Elton's piano.
Guitar on Funeral for a Friend alone is one of my favorite guitar performances ever. It's so good.
I mean, it's fantastic work. It never gets the credit. Elton John's backing band doesn't get the credit they deserve because they're all just amazing. Really kind of helps make that, his 70s run what it was. And my last one, I'm going to go with, you can probably pick a bunch of people from this. You could say Denny Diaz or Larry Carlton or any of the other session players that they use, but I'm going to go with Jeff Skunk Baxter, Steely Dan, of course, on their first 3 albums in particular. I think he may have filled in a little bit on their later stuff after they kind of fired everyone and became a studio band. But his work, you can hear it on My Old School, Ricky Don't Lose That Number, Bodhisattva, Night by Night, the pedal steel on Pearl of the Quarter, just all unbelievable stuff. One of my all-time favorite bands. He didn't do a bunch of stuff that I thought maybe he did. I had to look up some of the stuff and who played on it, whether it was Denny Diaz or some other completely unknown, session player. But I think his work probably stands up the best. He's probably done the most to kind of help that sound. So I'm going to go with him for my number 5, and that's my list. I have some others, but we can get into that later.
Good call on Skunk Baxter. The second solo on My Old School is probably one of my top 20 solos ever. I love it. And I also had Davy Johnstone from Elton John, but I got some more here. Let's lead off with one of the best vocalists of all time. So good that everyone forgets that he's a tremendous guitar player, and that's Jeff Buckley. On Grace Alone, some of the guitar playing is just fantastic. And when you consider how much his body is out of control while he's singing, he's not a blow-up doll on the side of the highway, but he really pulsates, but his handwork on the guitar is fantastic. Next, let's go with Kurt Weill, who I really adore. His solo, I love him as an artist. Great as the lead guitar player for War on Drugs. Really good tact, can restrain when he wants to, really melodic. And then some of the arrangements that he does on some of his albums are fantastic. Some really cool parts, some really cool finger picking stuff. He can do it all. He's great. Let's go with another vocalist who's greatly underappreciated. Let's go with Robert Smith of The Cure. Never gets enough love as a guitar player. Just really good, soulful player. Just really sharp. I don't think he gets enough love. Next, let's go with Steve Stevens. I like to bring him up a lot because I love Billy Idol, and I think he does a great job of never stealing the song, except for like maybe 10 to 15 seconds of all of like the really good Billy Idol stuff, where he'll operate and show off everything he can in a small window, and it's always really impressive. The Top Gun anthem, obviously, he just has an extravaganza, has a field day, but all the stuff he does with Billy Idol, I know he's played with Alice Cooper, I think, and a bunch of other people, but really good stuff. And then finally, one of my favorite guitarists ever that everyone knows and really likes, but love the Rolling Stones, but their live act didn't go from here to here until Ron Wood joined the group. And, he's not the writer that Richards is, but he's got a lot more feel when he plays than Keith does. Some of his solos on a lot of the live songs once he joined the group are awesome. I just love his style. I love his feel. I can't say enough about him. I think he's a fantastic player.
All right, nice picks. First one I will bring up is Sam Cohen. He was in Apollo Sunshine, and then he was in Yellowbirds, and he's got a few solo albums out now. He's also producing a lot of artists now. He did the most recent Andrew Combs record. He usually plays some guitar on the records when he produces too, and I think his playing is just really, really cool, kind of psychedelic. He uses a lot of effects pedals, so sometimes it sounds like a synth when it's actually his guitar. But he's a really cool player. Next, I'll go with Jeremy Fetzer, who is kind of a session guy. He's in the group Steelism, which is a kind of rockabilly, surf rock instrumental group with pedal steel, but he plays a Telecaster. Really tasteful player, doesn't overplay at all, great tone. I will also say Blake Mills, who kind of, if you really know a lot of guitar players, you probably know of him and have heard of him. But I think lately his production work has sort of overshadowed his guitar playing. And I don't know, he's probably among the top 5 guitar players on the planet right now. He's absolutely incredible. Then I will say Nels Cline from Wilco. I think he's an unbelievable guitarist, probably in my personal top 5 guitar players of all time. Really, really great. I've seen him a couple times, stood right in front of him and watched him, and it's really just a sight to behold, really impressive. And outside of Wilco, some of his jazz stuff that he does is really good as well. Really sort of well-rounded, and whatever kind of different project he's in, he always sort of knows how to adapt and apply himself to the different situations. And lastly, I guess I will go with kind of a younger artist. I'll go with Brian D'Addario from the Lemon Twigs. I think both the D'Addario brothers are just unbelievable musicians, and having seen them a couple times live as well, he just shreds way more than you would expect from their records. He's really, really talented guitarist. I've got a lot of other names written here. You guys got any more you want to throw out?
Joe, you'll be happy to know I have Izzy Stradlin written down. My favorite part of what I do like from GNR is kind of just those grooves and the riffs. I also have Rich Robinson of Black Crowes written down. I don't think he gets enough love in there as well. I had Billy Corgan written down. And then like we were talking about leading into the video, there's some more well-known players that I think should be elevated even more. Like, Jerry Cantrell, I think should be up there. He makes Alice in Chains. I mean, to be honest, Alex Lifeson. I mean, a lot of people love Alex Lifeson, but to me, the fact that he's not a lock for a top 10 player, sometimes they have to fight for him to get on top 50 lists is absurd. I don't know if there's a more interesting guitarist out there than Alex Lifeson to me, but I'm a Rush head, so it's a hit or miss. But Mike McCready, Pearl Jam, I think a lot of grunge acts kind of get lost with their guitarists, like Corgan and Cantrell and Mike McCready.
Yeah, you're probably right. Everyone gets outshined by Kurt Cobain for some reason. The least interesting of the guitarists from that era. No, he's fine. Also on my list, though, I think probably Lindsey Buckingham doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's awesome. His fingerstyle is phenomenal. Really, just really awesome, cool, unique stuff. It's just not like anything else out there. And he doesn't get the credit he deserves for how good Fleetwood Mac is. I also think Annie Clark, aka St. Vincent, is probably underrated. I don't know how much she shows off, but think on like the self-titled, some of the guitar work on Birth in Reverse and Digital Witness is really cool and really unique. And kind of wish she would do more of that. I think she didn't do enough on Mass Seduction, for me anyway. And I'm going to shout out to Todd Rundgren, Jason's boy, for his work, particularly on Bat Out of Hell. He's just one of those, he's a guy who can literally do anything he wants, so it's almost pointless to talk about because everything he does is going to sound awesome. And I think he really nails everything that Meatloaf and Jim Steinman were going for on Bat Out of Hell, so I always kind of hold that in high regard. Maybe one more. I'm going to throw Bonnie Raitt on there too, just for the hell of it.
Good call.
Underrated, lost, especially on the 70s albums. They do not get enough credit. And I probably should have put them on some of my lists, but there's just too much to go with. But her 70s output is wildly underrated.
All right, I guess I'll just quickly run down my list here. I've got Tommy Bolin, probably underrated because he died so young, but his brief stint in Deep Purple, excellent work on Come Taste the Band, but also in James Gang, and some of the jazz fusion stuff that he did with Billy Cobham and Alphonse Mouzon is just unbelievable. One guy who I think probably doesn't get recognized as a great guitarist because he's known more as like a singer-songwriter is M. Ward. I think his guitar playing is pretty underrated.
Sorry, you could probably put Elliot Smith in there. No one ever talks about him as a guitarist too.
Yeah, so good at doubling guitar tracks. Elliot Smith is unbelievable. Julian Lage, I've got a great sort of modern jazz guitarist, virtuoso. I've got Robert Ellis and Kelly Doyle. Robert Ellis, singer-songwriter, kind of country meets Paul Simon or something like that. He's a great guitar player, and his guitarist in his band is maybe even better, and the two of them together is just a sight to behold. A couple of the guitarists that passed through Mott the Hoople, I've got Mick Ralphs, really great riff writer, and a little more over the top of his replacement, Ariel Bender, aka Luther Grosvenor. Waddy Wattel, who is big time session guy, played on everything, Jackson Browne, Warren Zevon, James Taylor, all those guys. He was the guitarist on most of those records. Got James Honeyman Scott from the Pretenders' first two records.
Anyone who ever played on a Pretenders record to me is on the list.
Yeah, he's great. Really, I think influential, really. I think probably the primary influence of Johnny Marr. I've got Glenn Campbell, was in the Wrecking Crew before having his big country solo career. Mick Ronson, Mick Box from Uriah Heep, Buck Dharma from Blue Oyster Cult. One that I'm very surprised Cram didn't mention, Roy Buchanan. Another great Telecaster player, I've got Danny Gatton, Jim Campolongo, who is another Tele player. He's been a sideman for a lot of kind of country acts. He was in the Little Willies with Norah Jones. He's a really great player. Bernie Ledden, my favorite Eagles guitarist. Don Rich, who was Buck Owens' guitarist. And I've got a couple of young guys, Daniel Donato and Corey Wong from Wolfpack. So those are the ones I got.
No,
I
Mike.
think you named everybody, Jason.
Yeah.
There's no one left. That's all of them.
How did you not list Mike Campbell? You love him. I purposely left him off because you love him. He's yours.
I do love him. I kind of stayed away from like the bigger names, but he's underrated for sure.
You didn't stay away from much.
Oh, I'm sure I did. I'm sure people will leave a ton down in the comments that we didn't list. So be sure to do that. Interested to see what everybody thinks. There's a ton of great guitar players out there that don't ever get enough love. So list them below. Hit like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications when new videos come out, and check the description for links to our social media accounts. And we will see you in the next one.